As you can likely tell there, it's a tricky and sometimes an awkward time for a lot of different coaches when you get to this part of the year, and Kevin Willard has been a big storyline. But to the action on the court last night, Rapheal, this is a Florida squad that they faced that were viewed as one of the national championship favorites for much of the season, and especially with the way they came down the stretch here. But you've been talking about how formidable this Maryland lineup is, especially their starters. What ended up deciding last night's game?
Man, when you look at it, Maryland did the hard part. You did half the battle. You forced 17 turnovers. You get out and go on a break, get 17 points off turnovers. And you look at it, Walter Clayton, one of the better players in the country, an All-American, averaging close to 20 points a game. They held him to 13 points and only 3 made field goals. They did that part of the battle, but they got pounded on the glass. I know you mentioned it a little bit ago, but you can't go into an NCAA tournament game and get out-rebounded by 22, allow 15 offensive rebounds, and then in turn, you turn it over 11 times, and Florida turns that into 17 points. But Maryland did not win the play hard categories, which we have been so accustomed to them doing all season long.
And when you look at that aspect of it, because, I mean, you know, Derek Queen was exceptional just as an offensive talent. And when Juju Reese got the ball on the block, they couldn't do anything with him either. So it is striking that you've got two bigs that are that talented and were productive in the game. How did they end up getting out rebounded like that?
You need those other guys to come in and crash. And you talking about Derek Queen, and we all know Derek Queen is phenomenal. Big-time player, going to be a lottery pick in this upcoming draft. But you played 34 minutes, big fella. You got to get more than 5 rebounds. Derek Queen should have been a better rebounder last night. You have to have guys like Rodney Rice, Selton Miguel, Deshaun Harris-Smith crashing in from the guard position. When you look at it, Deshaun Harris-Smith off the bench, I don't need him to be a scorer. I don't need him to be a facilitator. I wanted him to be a play-hard guy. 18 minutes, 0 rebounds. That's not going to get the job done. When you look at Florida and you look at their depth off the bench, Thomas Howell come in, he gets some 9 rebounds off the bench. Just big-time effort for the Florida Gators. But when I look at Maryland, the depth has been a question all season long. I don't think that was an issue. I just think those guys got punked off the glass. And then Selton Miguel, 0 for 7 from the field. All of those guys need to be clicking in that foul trouble. It bothers Selton, but getting out-rebounded in that game, getting punked on the glass, that's never a good sign, a good recipe for success.
And I was even texting you a bit about it during the game because Florida's offense is so potent, and especially once they start hitting from deep, it's difficult to maintain your defensive assignments because they can lengthen your defense so much. What did you think about the pace of play, though? It did feel like, to me, that Maryland was playing pretty fast, faster than I thought they perhaps would against Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I was okay with the pace of play just because I know Maryland, they want to get up and down. They want to make it a track meet at times, but they just didn't make shots. And when you go 6 of 19 from the three-point line, it looks different when you're playing a little bit faster. And you look at the turnovers to the assists. 11 isn't a crazy number as far as turnovers, but only 6 assists. The guys just weren't making the shots. The ball just was not flying around the perimeter like we've been accustomed to. But you look at it, Florida, a really good defensive perimeter with Will Richard, with Walter Clayton, with different guys that can keep the ball in front. And sometimes Maryland's ability to beat guys off the dribble, get into the lane, and find shooters, find those kickouts, those weren't available last night. A bunch of those threes, they were contested. They were quick early in the shot clock. And then when they went up, Florida had a concerted effort to keep Maryland off the glass. This season, Maryland has punked guys on the glass. You look at that Illinois game when they went to Champaign, dominated the final line on the glass. Against Florida last night, only 7 offensive rebounds. That can't be the case when you're not making shots from deep and you're not getting to the free throw line at an extremely high rate and your turnovers are leading to points for the opposition. The little things did not go right for Maryland. Selton Miguel didn't make shots. Rodney Rice struggled a little bit. Derek Queen was awesome, but you need more than one guy in the NCAA tournament to win games.
And that result from last night, you know, it's the first time that Maryland's lost a game by more than 6 points the entire season. So just expecting that push that came in the second half, thought it would be more the Terps perhaps making it.
And then coaches always talk about how you start the second half is the big deal. How do you start the first 4 minutes of the second half? When you look at it, Florida came out of the halftime. They go on a 12-5 run. They get it going. And then how do you end games? How do you go into that TV timeout? Around that 8-minute mark in that second half, Florida goes on an 8-0 run to go into that media timeout. Those 2 runs in that second half, it really killed Maryland. Coaches always talk about, can we get 3 stops in a row? Can we get shutouts? Can we get kills? In that second half, Florida was able to come away with 2 to 4 kills, and that really separated them in the mix of the game.
Well, the game itself obviously played out in the way that it did, and there was a lot leading into the game in this fantastic season that Maryland put together. And Kevin Willard was asked post-game, as he's been asked frequently over the past couple of weeks, about what the future may hold for him.
So I have not even no, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just be honest with you. I haven't talked to my agent. I haven't talked to my wife. I made a promise to this team that I was going to just focus on this team, and that's all I've done. So I haven't talked to anybody. I have an agent. I'm sure he's talking to people because that's what agents like to do. But, you know, I don't know. It's right now, my biggest concerns in life right now, you know, I don't know who my boss is going to be. It's the guy that brought me here, who I really liked and appreciative of him bringing me to College Park, is not here anymore. And I don't know who we're going to hire. And that's, as in today's day and age, that worries me a little bit, I'm just being honest. My honesty got me in trouble. Might as well keep getting me in trouble. So this is going to be a family decision. I love College Park. I love Maryland, you know, but when you're at this point in your career and you're looking at things, I have to take everything into consideration about what's moving forward. But I have not even talked to anybody, so I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, there's no doubt it was a tremendous season for the Maryland men. Most wins they've had since the 2015-2016 season with that 27-9 record. Number 4 seed is the best seeding they've had in a decade as well. And their offense, with the talent they had, both on the perimeter and down low, most points per game, almost 82 per game, most they've had in 20 years. And of course, Derek Queen, we've been talking about him a lot in recent months here, and he's such an amazing true freshman for them this season. Homegrown talent, stayed and played for Maryland. But a lot of what the storyline became over the last couple of weeks here ended up being about this coaching search. And I had a chance just yesterday, actually, I talked to Ben McCollum, talked to Nico Medved. I mean, you got guys who are in a similar seat to where Kevin Willard has been here, leading other teams to the NCAA tournament, having suitors for their job. You've had to deal with that on the player side of things, even as a recruit, right, while you were preparing to go to Purdue.
Yeah, when I was going into my senior year of high school, Coach Painter, all the rumbles started to happen. Is Coach Painter leaving Purdue? Is Coach Painter going to be the coach of Missouri? And as a recruit, I'm in high school, I'm playing AAU ball. My immediate reaction is, Coach Painter going to take me with him? Do I have to start thinking about going to other schools? Does he like me that much at this point? So you call Coach. I used to call Coach Jack Owens all the time to see, is Coach staying? Are you guys leaving? Because you were the reason I'm coming to Purdue. So when I look at the recruits, when I look at Tafari Gapare, or even at Deshaun Harris-Smith, they came to Maryland to be with Coach Willard. But if Coach Willard leaves, does he take them with him? So that's something that's in the back of those guys' mind, even a Jacoby Gillespie, who's a junior, who has another year in college basketball, or Rodney Rice, that if he plays this situation right, Rodney Rice could be an NBA guard. He could be a player at the next level. So I feel for those guys, that confusion right now. But if I'm Kevin Willard and if I do leave, if Coach decides to leave, the thing that we always ask of players, and I think we should ask of coaches, did he leave the jersey in a better place? And I think when Kevin Willard came into Maryland, he picked up a jersey that a lot of people had gave up on, the fans that gave up on, and he's going to leave it in a better place if he decides to leave. So you take a team from 12th place finish last season, gutted roster, you lose different guys. You look at Ian Martinez, had a great NCAA tournament, lost him to the portal. But then Kevin Willard turned around and won the portal, brought in 3 terrific guards, finished top 2 in the Big Ten, got to the Sweet 16. So I'm up and down with it. I know those guys, I feel for them. But as Coach Willard, if he makes a decision, if he departs from Maryland, I could understand, but I also understand that he left that jersey in a better place, and there's not much we could ask for him.
And there's so much for Maryland fans who are understandably in a bit of a tenuous spot emotionally right now, but there's so much from this past season for them to grab hold to and enjoy. Getting back to a Sweet 16, being one of the programs that's in the Big Ten title hunt for much of the year, and ascending throughout the season, becoming a better road team by the end of the year. What are a couple of things that stand out to you about what we just saw on the court from the Terps?
Yeah, the development of the players throughout the season, even even if you look like a guy like a Deshaun Harris-Smith, you could see him get better throughout the season. He started the season as a starter, seemed like he lost some confidence, but as the season went on, he started to play a little bit harder. You look at Jordan Geronimo, he was deep into that Maryland bench, but his efforts got him on the floor. He started to play better. But you look at Derek Queen, man, and we all have to be blessed and fortunate to be able to watch Derek Queen go out there and play ball. Derek Queen should be a top 5 draft pick. I know Coach Willard, he had some comments in the media a couple weeks ago. They didn't go over too well, but I feel him. I agree with you, Coach. Derek Queen, if he was an international player, if he was coming from Europe or if he was coming from Spain or somewhere, he would be a top 5 pick with that skill set. He can dribble it, he can handle it, he can get to the basket, he can knock down shots outside, high IQ on both ends of the floor. You also got to see what it looked like when you see a player stay for 4 years. You look at Julian Reese, and sometimes fans question, is he the 5th year or 6th year? No, this is just a 4-year guy that loved his university and that got it back to the good graces. When Julian Reese came into Maryland, they were struggling. Coach got fired midseason. Danny Manning came in. He departed. You bring in Kevin Willard. You have some success his sophomore year. They get to the tournament. His junior year, they're at the bottom of the Big Ten. And Julian Reese could have left. He could have chased the bag. He could have went and got paid. I'm sure he got a little bit at Maryland, but he could have went and got paid nonetheless. But I look at Julian Reese, he stayed through it. He stayed through the dark times. He supported the university. He helped get Derek Queen into the campus, and then he gave the show to Derek Queen and took a back seat. I mean, hat goes off to Julian Reese. Just a big-time season for a big-time player. I think Julian Reese should go down as one of the best Terps that we look at in the last 20 years.
And just last weekend, one of the best moments we've seen in the last 20 years was that buzzer beater from Derek Queen. Let's check out our big stat presented by Walmart. It's about the teams who've made the most Sweet 16 appearances since the year 2000. You're welcome, America. Michigan State has 14 of those since that time. See, Rapheal's young. He didn't even get that reference. 14 Sweet 16 appearances for the Spartans in that time, amongst the elite in the sport, amongst the blue bloods that are out there. One of the all-time great coaches, Tom Izzo, discusses the matchup they've got on the way.
You know, unfortunately, I'm going to play against a team that I think has a similar philosophy as mine. And, you know, so I know we're going to play against a tough team. I know they're going to be physical. I know they're going to play hard. I know they're going to be somewhat disciplined. And I think that's what probably, if I really looked at all the teams that are left, there's got to be some common denominator. I mean, somebody could have just incredible amount of talent, but in the gist of it is you better be pretty focused, pretty disciplined, pretty accountable, and pretty together and connected if you're going to move on, unless you have unbelievable talent. And maybe there's one or two that do, but most of them don't.
Well, I know Tom Izzo keeps telling us his team isn't talented, but man, do they play basketball really well. So, I mean, there is some talent that's in this lineup, but there are some ways where it's kind of the Spider-Man meme a little bit when you look at style of play for Ole Miss, style of play for Michigan State, both tough, both don't mind a little pace in the open court. What do you see as some similarities and maybe some things that aren't exactly alike?
There's a lot of similarities, and I've actually played against Chris Beard when he was at Little Rock, Arkansas, and I still get nightmares about that game. So, Coach Izzo, you owe me one today, big fella. You owe me a game, Coach Izzo. But when I look at it, I look at Michigan State, and I look at how they beat New Mexico. It's been all about the perimeter defense, but not just in that last game, all season long. And when you look at how Ole Miss, how they want to beat you, it's with their guard play. It's with Sean Padula getting downhill, making plays for himself, making plays for others. Had 20 and 8 and 20 points, 8 assists in their last game. Matthew Morrell is a great player on the outside. Malik Dia can get in the lane and make some plays. But when I look at Michigan State, that's what they want. They won a guards game. When you look at Jay Nakins, should have been Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Jeremy Fears is a junkyard dog. Trey Holloman, one of the best defenders in the country. That's what these guys want. They want to get into you. They want to guard you 94 feet. They want to pressure you. But then on the flip side, Ole Miss, they want to make this game go up and down. They want to force turnovers. They want to get out of transition and run. But I look at Michigan State's guard play, Jeremy Fears, one of the better guards in the country as only a freshman. Trey Holloman off the bench, a game manager. Jay Nakins knows what's going on. And then Jace Richardson is a lottery pick, a very talented dude. So I look at Michigan State, any guards game, and I'm always taking the Spartans. When that shot goes up on the glass, Ole Miss has a tendency of getting out-rebounded. Michigan State can live on the offensive glass, can control the defensive glass, the transition on both sides of it. I think Michigan State has really got to push the basketball, making shots or not. I think if they control the tempo of the game with their perimeter defense that they have on that Spartan bench, I think I'm taking the Spartans in this one.
Chris Beard was the coach of that Texas Tech squad back in 2019 that knocked Michigan State out in the Final Four. And with this particular game, because right now Michigan State, number 5 nationally in defensive efficiency, according to Ken Pom, and defending the three-point line is not, it's something they're great at. Right. It feels like that's not necessarily a big factor when they're facing Ole Miss. Is that something that can even enhance the way that they can attack the Rebs?
Yeah, for sure, because I think they're a great defensive team guarding the three-point line because they have really good individual defenders. And when you look at that, and I say that because Jeremy Fears isn't getting beat off the bounce. You look at Trey Holloman, they're not getting whipped off the bounce into the lane. And when you get those kick-out threes, those step-in shots, it's because someone got beat defensively. If someone got beat, teammate had to step over and help some. Now you're in rotations. Now teams are just knocking down shots. But Michigan State, they guard their yard. They keep that ball in front. They keep the ball out of the lane. So when you are taking a bunch of those threes, they're contested. They're early in the shot clock. They're ill-advised. And when you do take those early ill-advised shots, Michigan State, the way they crash the glass with Cooper, Zapala, Jackson Kohler inside, it's just starting a transition break. And that's all you need. You need Jackson Kohler, grab a rebound, hit Jeremy Fears on the wing. Colin Carr, run the opposite wing. Throw that thing up, let's hang on rims. I think that's going to be the style of play for Michigan State. Because if you're Ole Miss and you want to get up and down, but if you're not making shots and you're still taking them, I think that's a recipe for success for the Spartans.
It's just striking how Michigan State can turn anything into a fast break.
Yeah, anything.
a make or a miss, right? You name it, they're breaking based off of that. Michigan has a little bit of that in their game, but different style, different flow to the way the Wolverines operate here. It is a habit. There's so many different things over the years that we have seen Michigan do from their school account, tweeting about the fact that it's the last 6 tournaments. And John Beilein, our guy, your guy, watch you guys on Sunday nights all the time. Before 2013, Michigan had not gone to a Sweet 16 in 19 years. Now it is what we do, says John Beilein. Could not agree more. And you look at the fact that this is the first season for Dusty May, and they were the last place team in the Big Ten last season, and now they're the first team in history to turn around from having 24 losses the previous season to now make the Sweet 16.
That's crazy.
It's striking. It is crazy. Remarkable, this turnaround for the Maizen.
It's big time, and I will say, there's no experience like sitting in the green room and watching a Michigan game with Coach John Beilein. He is into it no matter who they're playing. They could be up by 40, and Coach Beilein is finding little ways to critique what Coach May is doing. He's texting them throughout the game. It's just big time. I love Coach B, but I look at the way Michigan's been playing, and I think it's all about their guard play. We know Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf, they've been big time all season long, but you look at the last 3-4 games, it's been about Trey Donaldson being the floor general, controlling the pace of the game, setting the table for teammates. He's been aggressive, looking to get his game on offensively, and he's led to attack defensively on the perimeter because their perimeter defense has been big time. It's been major league. And then Roddy Gale, I know he had 26 against Texas A&M, a phenomenal game. He was getting into the lane. He was making free throws. He was drawing double teams on his drive and dropping off passes to Vlad Golden at the rim. He doesn't need to get him 26. If Roddy Gale can get him 12 to 13, that's enough for their guard play. Namari Burnett's got to make shots, but at the end of the day, when you face Auburn, it's about Janai Broome. And when you look at when Auburn faced Creighton the other night, Janai Broome struggled, 4 for 13 from the field. I really think the length of Creighton really bothered them at the rim, and that's going to be big time when you look at this Michigan squad. Can Vlad Golden stay out of foul trouble? Can Danny Wolf protect the basket without crashing down? Can Will Shedder come in and grab some defensive rebounds that lead to some transition baskets? But on the flip side, you have to deal with Janai Broome defensively, but Janai Broome has got to deal with Danny Wolf on the other side of the floor. And I know the SEC has been great all year, but they don't have a Danny Wolf. They don't have a 7-foot guard. And I look at Janai Broome as one of those old school power forwards, big bruisers. He doesn't want to get outside and move those puppies and have to guard Danny Wolf. This has got to be a game where Danny Wolf looks like a top 20 draft pick that we know he is. I think he controlled this game on both ends of the floor. You get the guards going, you get Danny Wolf inside and outside, Vlad Golden control in the middle. I think Michigan has enough on both ends of the floor. And then Trey Donaldson got a little bit of added motivation facing his old squad.
Yeah.
You never want to lose to your old locker room.
That's right, and especially the way he's been able to take over games late here recently. I think it's 21 out of his 56 postseason points have come in just the last couple of minutes of these games. I mean, he's just a shot maker when it's on the line. It's going to be on the line for Purdue tonight, as you know well. And this matchup with Houston is one we are all looking forward to. They're going to paint it gold and black. They are right there in Indy, less than an hour from West Live. So we would imagine there's going to be quite a few Boilermaker fans in the house when they face the #1 Houston Cougars. And, you know, there's a way to view this game where you can say, you know what, there's all the history that's on the side of the Boilermakers, but then, of course, you have this program in Houston that's been right there at the top of the sport, and Kelvin Sampson knows this conference well. What do you see as some keys to this matchup?
Trey Kaufman-Renn, my guy all season. Trey Kaufman-Renn, Big Ten all-first team, should have been the All-American. I don't think Houston has enough inside to deal with Trey Kaufman-Renn. I saw a newspaper article yesterday. It said, Houston, you have a problem. Because they do. Trey Kaufman-Renn has been big time in this NCAA tournament, had 22 in their first game. You go to that McNeese matchup in their last game, 23 points, 15 rebounds. He has been big time. And I look at when Houston played Gonzaga just in their last game, Graham Ike went crazy inside, gave Houston 27. And I think Trey Kaufman-Renn is a little bit better than Graham in the interior. So I think you throw the ball inside. It's a great way to alleviate pressure for those guards on the perimeter. You force Houston to have to double team a little bit, get them into some rotations. But outside of Trey Kaufman-Renn, you need great ball security from your guards. Outside of that, we know you got to rebound. You know Purdue's going to want to keep it in the half court, control the pace. But Braden Smith has got to be Braden Smith. You're facing LJ Cryer, one of the better guards in the country. But all season, we've said that Braden Smith was the best point guard, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. Well, now it's time to show America. LJ Cryer coming off a 30-point game against Gonzaga, looking like one of the better guards in the country. This has to be a game where Braden Smith comes out and shows everyone that he was the Big Ten Player of the Year for a reason. It can't just be 12 points, 9 assists. It's got to be a big-time performance. It's got to be 18, 20 points, 10, 12 assists, really controlling and dominating the game. You know Houston, they want to go get physical with that ball screen. They're going to try and get over it. They're going to try and take away that drop pass from Trey Kaufman-Renn. So this is a game where Braden Smith has to come out early, aggressive, often throughout the game, looking to get his game on to loosen up that Houston defense. Because if Braden Smith is going, if Trey Kaufman-Renn is eating up inside, you got Cam Heide and Miles Colvin running the wings. Fletcher Lawyer can make shots. He's going to make shots. C.J. Cox, Shakari Harris, they've been much better the last 2-3 weeks. Purdue has enough, but it's just going to come down to that glass, keeping Houston off the offensive glass, not turning the basketball over, and keeping Houston out of transition.
Man, that matchup and the decisiveness that they'll need from Braden Smith off the ball screen just to figure out where's the defense. You know they're going to come try to bump him and bang him. He's got to stay on his game throughout the night. There's no doubt about that. More hoops on the way here. Women's side of things, it was now the 5th consecutive year the Big Ten Conference has sent at least 2 teams to the Sweet 16. This season, it is 3 teams making the Sweet 16. Maryland facing South Carolina tonight. Ole Miss facing UCLA, the #1 team in the land, Bruins. And then tomorrow, USC will face Kansas State. And we do know one of the big storylines in the sport centers around Juju Watkins, perhaps the star of stars in women's college basketball this season. A crushing blow to the program, crushing blow to the sport with that injury she suffered just a few minutes into their matchup last week. Here's a look inside the campus there in Los Angeles at the University of Southern California. And Lindsey Gottlieb tweeting that out and just wanting everyone to know the support that's there for Juju Watkins is something that's reverberated through the entire sports community. Shimmy Miller, as I promised, is sitting here next to me at this point, and we've all really enjoyed, you know, the path of watching recent seasons of the growth and consumption of women's college basketball, and now Juju Watkins being able to seize that mantle and kind of take that flame with her. So now we don't have her for the remainder of this tournament. I know my initial reaction was a full gasp. It went silent in the arena there. What was it like as you saw that play out? And then how do you think USC handled it afterwards?
For me, it was the worst possible scenario. I mean, I coached basketball for 24 years. I've had lots of players that have suffered ACL injuries. I knew immediately what it was when they showed the replay in slow motion. You could see it. And then it was the worst possible injury or thing that could possibly happen to the worst person that it could happen to. But you know what? Lindsey Gottlieb can coach. they still have a very talented team with very talented seniors and a very talented freshman class, the #1 recruiting class in the country. They have enough talent to continue to advance in this tournament. And I hate to say it, it sounds almost cliche, but as all coaches say, Anthony, next woman up. And it is what it is.
We know what an exceptional talent Kiki Iriafen has been, whether it was her time at Stanford and now this season with USC. And it struck me during that game the way that she stepped forward, not only in her production, but you could see her trying to enhance the calm of her teammates around her.
Oh, she's just really stepped into that leadership role. I mean, this is a young woman who transferred in, and she's really been trying to find her role, find her value as the Robin to Juju's Batwoman. And in that game, you just saw it all come together. I mean, like you said, not only the 36 points that she put up, which was a season high, but there was a moment where in the game where it got a little testy, a little contentious, and she just stepped right in, diffused the situation. You know, she
did a little shimmy herself
at
one point with the team, right?
She did do a little shimmy. So I just really liked what she showed, and that freshman backcourt. I mean, those three of Heckel and Avery Howe and Kennedy Smith, 41 points between the three of them. They have enough talent to continue moving forward.
And that really, I find to be a somewhat striking comment when you think about the depth of the sport in general right now. But because of that recruiting class, it feels like it wasn't long ago where we wouldn't have been able to speak of USC's depth in this manner. But you do feel like this is still a program that's going to be able to compete for a national title?
I do. And this is also a USC team who defend, they guard, and defense travels. Like yes, of course, you lost, in my opinion, the best player in the country with Juju, but also you have a very aggressive defensive playing style. They create a lot of points off of turnovers. They score fast and in transition, and that travels. And so when you play that way, you don't necessarily have to rely on just one person to get you buckets in the quarter court when your defense can score points for you.
And the matchup that's there, you mentioned the freshmen. Do you feel like, especially from a ball handling perspective, because so much of the usage rate, not every game, but a lot of the eyes would navigate towards Juju with her being out there, there is an opportunity now in Kansas State, one of the top defensive teams in the country, to game plan for this version of the Trojans. Is there sort of an enhanced responsibility on some of that youth?
Well, the ball handling is going to be shared. You're going to see Heckel handle the ball. You're going to see Talia von Oelhoffen handle the ball a little bit more, maybe even Kennedy Smith. But here's a fun fact about that usage rate that you talked about. Juju's usage rate actually went down exponentially this year from last year. Last year, she was about 42% usage rate, which is extremely high. This year, it's still high, but she's at about 32%, which actually is 35th in the country. So, you know, what I'm trying to say there is that USC doesn't rely on Juju as much as everybody thinks they rely on Juju. Now, they rely on her, but not as much as you think. So that ball handling responsibility is going to be really shared and distributed.
And in the post, you know, a couple of different matchups to look forward to, but for the way that K-State likes to operate, and they've got Ayoka Lee on the interior.
Yes, they do.
She's
Yes,
6'6",
they do.
very long,
Yes,
very productive.
yes.
I know that matchup has to excite you between her and
I mean,
Iriafen.
she's one of the best post players in the country. She's shooting about 65%. She's an older player. She's been around for a while. But here's where USC has an advantage, is they play fast. And so when you have a 6'6" player who's struggled with some knee injuries her entire career, she's not as mobile or as agile, that behooves USC. So now you're putting the pressure on Kansas State to keep up with USC in transition. And so what you want to do, if you're Lindsey Gottlieb, and I know Lindsey Gottlieb, she's going to run. I mean, that's what USC does. That's what the Trojans do, and they'll do it even more. Watch for that even more tonight. Also, that backcourt. They have got to, you've heard of space and pace, right? With USC, it's got to be pace and face. So we talked about them running, but Kansas State, they shoot the three at a really high rate. They're averaging over 28 three-point attempts a game. They're shooting about 38% from the three. So you got to take, their backcourt has got to take away the open looks that Kansas State likes to get. They like to go 4 around Ayoka Lee.
And we do know, like you mentioned, USC plays defense. K-State does as well. I mean, two really well-rounded teams. This was going to be a great matchup even with Juju Watkins out there. So it's certainly going to be one to look out for come Saturday. But some teams that are going to be on the hardwood tonight, the #1 team in the country, the Big Ten tournament champions, UCLA, will take to the hardwood again. And their head coach, Corey Close, and one of their stars, addressed the media.
Surrender the outcomes and play in freedom. And I want our players to have complete focus on mastering their craft and being elite teammates with and for each other. And then that gives them the best chance to go back to an Elite Eight, go beyond to a Final Four, to compete for a national championship. I think when you focus on what will that mean to the program? And is that going to be pressure for me? I actually think it takes away from the freedom to maximize your performance in the present moment. And so would it mean a lot? Absolutely. Are our eyes focused on the standards of what it will take to get there? Yes. But I really just want us to stay present on being 1-0.
Yeah, I just think the experience that, you get from playing at this stage in this environment, every team is really good and you got to be prepared to give it your all and go out there and win. But I think that feeling of not, coming out here the last 2 times and not having won, it really is like a sour taste in all our mouths. So just, I think the extra competitiveness and the energy that we'll play with, because we don't want to have that same feeling again.
There's almost a dual role that coaches tend to have, probably even more so this time of year than any other, as you know, Shimmy, where you're not only doing the X's and O's, the strategy, but the mentality that your team approaches these things with. And it feels like Corey Close communicates that at a really high level.
Oh, she's one of the best in the business at that. I'm just waiting for her to write a book, to be honest with you. I mean, she has a second career as like a motivational speaker for sure. But you think about what has made UCLA so great all season long. I mean, they spent an unprecedented 12 straight weeks, unprecedented for UCLA in the #1 spot. UCLA has the best post player in the country in Lauren Betts. All season long, they have played through Lauren Betts. They average over 40 points in the game, or 40 points in the paint per game. Lauren Betts, Lauren Betts, Lauren Betts. And Ole Miss is going to do everything they can to take that away. I mean, Ole Miss, they don't score a lot of points, but they defend. They make sure that their opponents don't score a lot of points. In fact, they wear T-shirts that say, "We defend." So there's no secret to what they're going to try to do. Their opponents are only averaging about 28 paint points. They're forcing over 20 turnovers per game. Their opponents are shooting or scoring less than 60 points per game. But that can't deter UCLA. UCLA still has to do what got them this far, and that's play through Lauren Betts, their inside-outside game. And they can do it. Ole Miss, they don't have a player over 6'2" on their entire roster. UCLA starts 2 players that are 6'4" or taller. Play through your big girl.
Yeah, I like the sounds of that, and I'm sure Lauren Betts does as well. And one thing that strikes me with UCLA is the fact that, yes, they lost a couple of games to USC, and even in the Big Ten Tournament Championship game, as you saw in person, the first half was still going the way of the Trojans, but it's a UCLA squad that's now tasted their own blood, and they've been tested, and so now it feels like perhaps it's brought out a bit something enhanced in the Bruins.
I like the fact that they've gone through the fire a little bit. And they were able to come out, a little burn, but still intact. I like that even more. We know that UCLA can play pretty. They've done it all season long. I mean, they were averaging, their wins were in the double digits. It wasn't even close. They were beating opponents by 15 points a game. Now we know that UCLA can win gritty. And there's something to be said about having a little bit of a resiliency, about having to overcome some challenges, and then proving to yourself and to one another that we can do that. We can be down at halftime and still win. We can be tied with Richmond and still win. Because trust me, Ole Miss is going to make this gritty tonight.
All right, and they got to be ready for that. And we've seen them start to enhance that version of their game, the intangibles that UCLA brings to the table. And we know Maryland, for years under Brenda Freeze, has been able to accentuate that as well. When you look at the most Sweet 16 appearances of current teams in the Big Ten Conference, UCLA leading the way at 7. Then you have Maryland at everything they've been able to accomplish under Brenda Freeze. 6 Sweet 16 appearances just over the last 10 NCAA tournaments. So there's a consistency to Brenda Freeze, to this Maryland program, with players coming in and out of the lineup, in and out of the program, season in, season out. There's some proof in the pudding for the Terps.
We don't give Brenda Freeze enough respect, or we don't give her flowers the way we should, in my opinion. I think we almost have success fatigue when it comes to Brenda Frese because we just expect her to perform at a certain level. I mean, let's think back to a year ago. Brenda Frese had lost several players in the transfer portal. They literally limped across the finish line to make it to the first round of an NCAA tournament where they bumped. But let's not forget that Brenda Frese right now is playing for a berth in the Elite Eight. This would be her second Elite Eight in 3 years. Like, how many coaches can say that? I know coaches that have coached for decades that haven't been to one Elite Eight. Brenda's playing for her second one. But it goes back to me of what Maryland has done all season long. Maryland has excelled in two areas. They get to the free throw line. This team is built for downhill attacks. They draw fouls, and they offensive rebound. She went into the portal. She got several players who were really good defenders and really good rebounders. Mir McLean, they got Christina Dulce, Sailor Poffenbarger, Kylene Schmeichel. So they get to the free throw line and they offensive rebound. Those happens to be a weakness. One of the few weaknesses of South Carolina is their defensive rebounding. So Maryland just continue to do what has gotten them this far.
And it feels like an odd thing to say about a Dawn Staley team, you know, one of the all-time greats for what they usually do on the glass. You mentioned some of those names. I mean, Sarah Tibiasu shooting 45% from beyond the arc over the last 10 games. Kylene Schmeichel averaging almost 20 points a game over the last 10 games here. So it feels like you're seeing Maryland now hitting their stride in a different way. And this is a matchup we've seen every season. Brenda Frese versus Dawn Staley, the Terps versus the Gamecocks. Since 2017, every year these teams meet, so these programs know each other well.
Well, that's what another strength of Brenda's is her scheduling. She does an excellent job of scheduling non-cons so that when they're in the NCAA tournament and they face a South Carolina, it's okay. Because during the regular season over the last few years, we've played South Carolina, we've played Notre Dame, we've played UConn. So her team, her squad, they're built for this. And you talked about that mental aspect. That's where that mental aspect comes in with Maryland. They're built for this mentally. There's no one moving forward that they're going to face that it's going to intimidate them because of what she does in the non-con every year.
Such a leader. There's no doubt about that. It does feel like we were talking about it a bit in the pre-show, just the way that the Big Ten as a conference has enhanced since Maryland ended up joining. It's been a sight to behold. There's no doubt about that. You will continue to behold Shimmy Miller a bit later in the show. So if you didn't get enough Shimmy in your life, there will be more on the way. But we'll transition back to some men's NCAA tournament discussion as it relates to the Big Ten Conference with Michigan State, Michigan, and Purdue all preparing to hit the court. Love those Women's History Month vignettes that we do. And lots of news around the Big Ten these days. Robin Pingeton announced as the next Wisconsin head basketball coach. She was leading Missouri to 4 different NCAA appearances in her time there in Columbia. Cody McMahon decides to hit the transfer portal. She was an honorable mention All-American this past season. And Rutgers defeated Charleston, and also Minnesota defeated Gonzaga in overtime. So it's not only the NCAA tournament news, but some of the other postseason tournaments that are going on as well. But let's get to Coach Pingeton and what it means for Wisconsin to be able to hire a coach who's been around the block a lot. She had success over 15 seasons in leading Mizzou, 10 postseason appearances in her time there. She replaces Marissa Mosley in 4 seasons, 1 postseason appearance for Coach Mosley. So what is Wisconsin getting in Robin Pingeton?
They're getting someone with experience. They're getting someone who has, most importantly, NCAA experience. And this hire is a little bit different from the last few hires that Wisconsin's had. Marissa Mosley had a couple years at a mid-major. Before Marissa, you had a couple years at George Washington, or a few years as a successful assistant with the prior hires. But with Robin, you're getting someone who's been a head coach almost her entire career. And she's built a program. She took Mizzou, who was really a decimated program when she took over, and she built it into an NCAA tournament team, a destination spot for recruits. I mean, she was crushing it when she had the Cunningham sisters, Sophie Cunningham, and we all know who Sophie freaking Cunningham, the player who everyone, wished were on their team but hated to play against. And then she had the Porter sisters. So she knows how to recruit. She knows how to build a program. She had a great deal of success at Illinois State and St. Ambrose. So this is a mature hire for Wisconsin, and she's got her work cut out for her. Now, Marissa Mosley, I'm going to give Marissa Mosley all the credit in the world because she left it better than how she found it. But sometimes you can only do so much with so much, and change is an opportunity for something better to occur. And I think Robin is coming in, and I think she can get it from here to here.
585 wins over 30 years as a head coach so far. More will be on the way in Madison. There's no doubt about that. So we look forward to seeing what Coach Pingeton is able to do in leading Wisconsin. Shimmy's going to stay right here. Rapheal will rejoin us again. We're going to get our list of the key players that each of them see as we continue Sweet 16 action.
My guy. My guy, Luke Goody. Then my other guy, Anthony Leal. My guy, Desmond Claude.
Trey Holloman. That's my boy. Oh, that's my boy.
A good day to be Rapheal Davis. You're now my guy.
I don't know if anybody has more guys than Rapheal Davis, but when you make plays, when you're on the money, then you become Rapheal's guy. Since Shimmy is here as well, not only will we talk Rapheal's guys, we're going to talk Shimmy's ladies as well for this weekend.
Funny,
Sweet 16, Rapheal, who's your guy for this weekend?
I'm going with Trey Holloman because not as just Trey Holloman. It's not just my guy, but his parents, they invited me to the cookout. I talked to mom and dad. I'm going all in on Trey Holloman through the NCAA tournament, averaging 14 points, 4 assists, one of the best defenders in the country. Trey Holloman's going to need to be big time on both ends for Michigan State to take out Ole Miss.
My girl, Abby Kubik. I'm going with Abby Kubik from Maryland. She's coming off her best game of the season, 19-12, and that big come-from-behind win. Plus, most importantly, she had the game-winning hedge that forced a turnover, which is the kind of plays you need from a fifth-year player.
Yeah, Shimmy gets it. Those type of plays, they make you my guy or my girl. So my last one, I'm going Trey Kaufman-Renn, the old school worker. Karl Malone of the Big Ten. You throw that basketball to him at the elbow, he's going to give you problems. He doesn't get on social media much. He just goes about his business. Trey Kaufman-Renn averaging 22 and 12 over the last 2 games. He's going to need a big one to take out the Houston Cougars.
Talia von Oelhoffen from USC. She's coming in as the #1 player in the portal. Now's your time to shine, Talia. Go to work.
I like it. Not Lauren, not Kiki, Talia. See that depth of UCLA? See the depth of our basketball talent we got right here. I'm just happy to be here. It's Vibes on the set at Big Ten today. More will be on the way all weekend on the Big Ten Network.